The Great Hall of Prime was built to make visitors feel small. Its walls stretched upward for hundreds of meters, covered in glowing crystals that pulsed with soft blue light. 12 massive chairs sat in a circle, each one designed for a different alien species. Some were filled with water, others hummed with strange energy. One was simply a pit of darkness where something ancient and unknowable rested. Park stood in the center of this circle, alone. He was not a tall man. His hair was gray at the temples, and his simple black suit looked plain compared to the elaborate clothing of the alien delegates around him. He carried no weapons. He had no guards. He was just one human standing before the 12 most powerful species in the galaxy. The delegate spoke first, was her name, and she towered over like a nightmare made real. Her body was covered in black armor that grew from her own skin. Her 4 arms ended in claws that could cut through steel. When she spoke, her mandibles clicked together in a sound like breaking bones. "You are the human ambassador," said. It was not a question. "Your species has spread across 300 star systems in just 2 centuries. The Assembly wishes to know your intentions." Bowed his head slightly. "Our intentions are peaceful, honored delegate. We seek only to trade, to learn, and to live alongside the great civilizations of this galaxy." A sound rippled through the chamber. It took a moment to realize it was laughter. "Peaceful," said the delegate, "an ancient being made of living stone. Every species claims to be peaceful when they are weak. Then they grow strong and their true nature appears." Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "With respect, honored delegate, you misunderstand. Humanity is not peaceful because we are weak. We are peaceful because we choose to be." More laughter. The hollow one in its pit of darkness made a sound like wind through dead trees. The aquatics splashed in their tank with amusement. Choose leaned forward, her compound eyes glittering. "You have no natural weapons. Your bodies are soft. Your lives are short. What choice do you have except peace?" Raised his hand, and a holographic display appeared in the air above him. Images began to play. Old images. Images from Earth's history. The delegates watched in silence as mushroom clouds bloomed over cities. They saw trenches filled with bodies stretching to the horizon. They saw gas chambers and mass graves and burning villages. They saw weapons that could crack continents and poisons that could kill worlds. "This is what humanity did to itself," said quietly. "Before we ever reached the stars, before we knew other life existed, we created these horrors and turned them against our own kind." The laughter had stopped. "We nearly destroyed ourselves," continued. "Multiple times. We came so close to extinction that we could taste it, and when we finally stepped back from the edge, we made a choice. We looked at what we were capable of, and we decided to become something else." He gestured, and the images changed. Now they showed hospitals and schools. They showed humans feeding the hungry and healing the sick. They showed the great orbital stations that had become symbols of human generosity across the galaxy. "We built institutions to contain our worst impulses. We created laws and cultures designed specifically to restrain the monster that lives inside every human being. We did not eliminate our capacity for violence. We simply chose not to use it." Made a dismissive gesture with one of her clawed hands. "Pretty words, but words are not power. In this galaxy, strength determines survival. Your species has no military worth mentioning. You have no weapons that could threaten even the smallest assembly member." Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was soft. "Honored delegate, do you know why humanity has no visible military?" "Because you cannot build one," answered. "No," shook his head. "Because we built something so terrible that we hid it from ourselves. We created weapons that could end civilizations in hours, and then we locked them away and tried to forget they existed. Not because we were forced to, because we were afraid of what we might do if we remembered." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each delegate in turn. "I did not come here to threaten you. I came here to warn you. Humanity has worked very hard to become what we are today. We have buried our rage beneath centuries of peace and progress. But that rage is not gone. It is only sleeping. Took a deep breath. We will trade with you fairly. We will share our knowledge freely. We will heal your sick and welcome your refugees. We will be the kindest, most generous species you have ever encountered. But I beg you, honored delegates, do not mistake our kindness for weakness. Do not push us. Do not hurt our people. Do not force us to remember what we used to be. The chamber was silent, then began to laugh again, and the other delegates joined her. The human thinks it is a predator, said. How amusing. Go back to your medical stations and your trading posts, little ambassador. The assembly will tolerate your presence in this galaxy. For now. Bowed his head. He had said what he came to say. He had given them the warning that human law required him to give. As he walked out of the great hall, his aide fell into step beside him. Young Shin looked troubled. They did not believe you, ambassador, she said quietly. No, agreed, they did not. What happens now? Was quiet for a long moment. Outside the crystal walls of Prime, stars burned in the endless darkness of space. Somewhere out there, human ships carried medicine and food to 100 different worlds. Human doctors worked through the night to save alien lives. Human teachers shared knowledge without asking for payment. Now we hope, said finally. We hope that our kindness will be enough. We hope that they will never give us a reason to show them what else we can be. He did not sound hopeful. 15 years passed, and humanity kept its word. Human medical stations appeared throughout the galaxy. They asked for no payment. They turned away no one. A warrior with a wounded arm would receive the same care as a human child with a fever. It did not matter who you were or where you came from. If you were sick, the humans would help you. Dr. Sora had worked at Mercy Point 7 for 12 years. The station orbited a dead moon near space, and it saw patients from a dozen different species every day. Sora was 41 years old, with tired eyes and steady hands. She had not taken a vacation in 3 years. There was always another patient who needed her. Her staff loved her. The alien volunteers who worked alongside the humans respected her. Even the patients, who looked down on humans as weak creatures, admitted that Doctor was skilled. On the morning everything changed, Sora was treating a young who had been injured in a shipping accident. The aquatic alien floated in a specialized tank, while Sora carefully repaired damage to its respiratory system. You will be fine, she told them gently. Another day of rest and you can return to your ship. They made a bubbling sound of gratitude. Then the alarm started screaming. Sora looked up, confusion on her face. Mercy Point 7 was a medical station. It had no enemies. It had no defenses because it needed none. Who would attack a hospital? The answer came 30 seconds later, when shock troops breached the main airlock. They moved through the station like death itself. Black-armored bodies filled the corridors, their 4 arms carrying weapons that glowed with killing light. The station's small security team tried to stop them. They died in seconds. Sora heard the screams through the intercom. She heard the weapons fire. She heard her people dying. Everyone into the surgery bay, she ordered, her voice steady despite the terror in her heart. Move, now. Her staff obeyed. 23 humans and 8 alien volunteers crowded into the surgical bay. Sora sealed the door behind them, knowing it would not hold for long. Why, whispered one of the young nurses, a boy named who had only been on the station for 6 months. Why are they doing this? Sora did not have an answer. The door exploded inward. Soldiers poured through the gap, their weapons raised. The commander stepped forward and Sora recognized the markings on her armor. This was a high-ranking officer in the military. You are Dr. Sora, said. Her voice was like metal scraping against stone. You will give us access to your medical research, all of it. The regeneration technology, the cellular repair systems, everything. Sora straightened her spine. She was not a tall woman and towered over her by 2 meters, but she did not look away. "This is a medical station," Sora said. "We share our research freely with anyone who asks. You did not need to do this. You only needed to ask." Made a sound that might have been laughter. "We do not ask, we take." She gestured to one of her soldiers. "Show her we are serious." The soldier grabbed Nurse by the arm and dragged him forward. The young man struggled, but he might as well have been fighting against a mountain. The soldier raised his weapon. "Wait," Sora said. "Wait, I will give you what you want. Just please do not hurt my people." But shook her head. "You misunderstand, human. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to send a message." The weapon fired, Nurse fell. Sora screamed. What followed was broadcast across networks. The Dominion wanted the galaxy to see what happened to those who had things that the wanted. One by one, the staff of Mercy Point 7 were executed. Some begged, some prayed, some simply closed their eyes and waited for the end. Through it all, Dr. Sora watched. She could not look away. These were her people, her family, and she could not save them. When only Sora remained, approached her. A recording drone floated nearby, capturing everything. "Any final words, human?" asked. There was amusement in her voice. Sora looked up at the commander. Her face was wet with tears, but her eyes were clear. "You have no idea what you have just done," she said. Laughed and raised her weapon. Across human space, the broadcast played on every screen. In homes on 100 worlds, families watched in horror. In ships traveling between stars, crews stood frozen before their displays. In the great cities of Earth, billions saw the massacre unfold in real time. No one spoke, no one moved. And then slowly, something began to change. It was not visible at first. There were no protests, no riots, no demands for vengeance. The humans simply became quiet. They stopped laughing. They stopped smiling. They went about their daily work with mechanical precision, their eyes distant and cold. On Earth, in the city of, an old woman watched the broadcast with her grandson. The boy was crying. The woman was not. "Grandmother," the boy whispered, "what will happen now?" The old woman had lived through much. She remembered the stories her own grandmother had told her, stories of a time before humanity learned to be kind, stories of what humans could do when they stopped holding back. Now, she put her arm around her grandson, now the galaxy learns why our ancestors were so afraid of themselves. Somewhere deep in human space, in facilities that officially did not exist, lights began to turn on. Machines that had been dormant for centuries started to wake, and in the darkness between stars, something vast and terrible began to stir. The had wanted to send a message. They had succeeded beyond their wildest nightmares. The Galactic Assembly waited for human outrage. They waited for angry speeches and demands for justice. They prepared diplomatic statements about regrettable incidents and offered to mediate between humanity and the Dominion. But no demands came, no speeches were given, no diplomats arrived. Instead, humanity disappeared. Human traders from galactic markets without explanation. Human medical stations went dark, their staff evacuated overnight. Human ships stopped answering communications. Within 2 weeks, the species that had been everywhere was suddenly nowhere. The silence was more terrifying than any threat could have been. On the Empress celebrated. "The humans have fled," she announced to her court. "They have seen our strength and realized they cannot oppose us. This is a great victory for the Dominion." Her advisors cheered. Commander received medals and promotions. The massacre at Mercy Point 7 was called a strategic success. But some were not so sure. Old generals who had studied human history felt a cold fear in their hearts. They remembered the images from Ambassador Park's presentation 15 years ago. They remembered the mushroom clouds and the mass graves. "We should prepare our defenses," one general advised the Empress. just in case. Laughed at him. Prepare for what? The humans have no military, they have no weapons, they are doctors and merchants, nothing more. The general bowed his head and said nothing. But that night, he quietly moved his family to a distant colony world. Meanwhile, on Earth, the transformation had begun. Fleet Admiral stood in an underground command center that had been sealed for 400 years. Dust covered the consoles. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling. But when she touched the main control panel, lights flickered to life throughout the vast chamber. "The systems are still functional," reported General Han, who stood beside her. "Everything is exactly as our ancestors left it." Nodded slowly. She was 63 years old and had spent her entire career as a diplomat. She had never fired a weapon. She had never commanded a fleet in battle. But she was human, and in her veins ran the same blood as the warriors who had nearly destroyed Earth centuries ago. "Show me what we have," she said. The displays activated one by one. Ships appeared on the screens. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. Weapons systems that humanity had created at the height of its military madness, then locked away and tried to forget. Han watched face carefully. "Admiral, are you certain about this? Once we begin, there is no going back." Thought of Dr. Sora. She had met the woman once at a medical conference. Sora had been kind and funny and full of hope for the future. Now she was dead, murdered by aliens who thought humans were too weak to fight back. "They killed 43 people," said quietly. 43 people who had dedicated their lives to healing others. 3 of them were teenagers, children who just wanted to help. She turned to face Han. "Our ancestors created something called the doctrine of restraint. Do you know why?" "To prevent unnecessary war," Han answered. "No," shook her head. "To prevent what we become when we stop restraining ourselves. Our ancestors were terrified of their own capacity for violence. They built an entire civilization designed to keep the monster locked away." She looked at the ships on the display. But they also included Article 7, a provision for when restraint was no longer possible, when some enemy pushed us so far that mercy became impossible. "And now," Han asked. "Now they have pushed us past that line." His voice was cold. "Now we show the galaxy why our ancestors were so afraid." Across human space, the awakening continued. In orbital shipyards that had produced medical vessels for centuries, workers began building something else. The new ships were not elegant. They were not beautiful. They were angular, brutal things designed for one purpose only: killing. In weapons laboratories that had been sealed since the last Earth War, scientists unlocked doors that had not been opened in generations. They found things inside that made them weep. Then they dried their tears and got to work. In training facilities hidden beneath mountains and floating in empty space, soldiers who had never expected to fight began to remember their training. They were farmers and teachers and artists who had learned combat skills as children, just in case. Now the just in case had arrived. And in the deepest facilities, in places so secret that even most human leaders did not know they existed, the worst weapons of all were brought back online. Planet killers, star breakers, devices that could turn entire solar systems into graveyards. Humanity had created these things long ago, then hidden them away in horror. Now they dusted them off and made sure they still worked. 6 months passed. They grew confident. The galaxy returned to normal. Some species even began to move into the territories that humans had abandoned. Then, without warning, a single message was broadcast across all frequencies. It reached every ship, every station, every world in the galaxy. The message was simple. "This is the United Human Command. To the Dominion. You killed 43 innocent people at Mercy Point 7. You broadcast their deaths as entertainment. You laughed as they died." There was a pause. When the message continued, the voice was colder than the void between stars. "The doctrine of restraint is hereby suspended. Article 7 is in effect. May God have mercy on you because we will not. The message ended, and across the galaxy, sensors began detecting movement in human space. Ships were emerging from hiding, not hundreds, not thousands, more ships than anyone had ever seen in one place. They had wanted to know what humanity was capable of. They were about to find out. The battle fleet arrived at the human colony of New expecting an easy victory. 60,000 warships filled the space around the planet, their weapons charged and ready. Commander stood on the bridge of her flagship, the same cruel smile on her face that she had worn at Mercy Point 7. "Scan for human defenses," she ordered. Her officers obeyed. The scans showed nothing. No military stations, no weapons platforms, just a peaceful colony of 3 million humans living quiet lives on a blue-green world. "They have no defenses," reported one of her officers. "They are completely unprotected." Laughed. "Of course they are. Humans are sheep. They bleat about peace and kindness, but when real strength appears, they can only run and hide." She raised her hand to give the order to attack. Then her sensors screamed warnings. All around the fleet, space itself seemed to tear open. Ships emerged from nowhere by the thousands. They were human ships, but they looked nothing like the graceful trading vessels the galaxy knew. These were weapons given form, angular, brutal, built for one purpose only. Stared at her display in disbelief. "That's impossible. Humans don't have." She never finished the sentence. The human fleet did not negotiate. It did not warn. It did not demand surrender. It simply attacked. The first wave of missiles struck the formation like the fist of an angry god. Thousands of ships died in the initial seconds, their shields useless against weapons they had never seen before. They tried to return fire, but human ships moved with impossible speed, dancing through their targeting solutions like ghosts. On the human flagship Mercy remembered, Admiral watched the battle unfold. Her face was stone. Her hands did not shake. "Status report," she said quietly. "Losses at 12,000 ships and climbing," reported General Han. "They're trying to regroup, but our electronic warfare systems have disrupted their communications. They can't coordinate." "Our casualties?" 47 ships, all crews evacuated before destruction. Nodded. The numbers were not a surprise. Humanity had spent centuries hiding its military capabilities. They had pretended to be weak and harmless while secretly maintaining weapons and tactics that made them look like children playing at war. On her display, another 1,000 ships vanished in balls of fire. Aboard the flagship, Commander was screaming orders that no one could hear. Her communications were jammed. Her weapons could not lock onto human ships. All around her, the pride of the Dominion was being systematically destroyed. "How?" she kept asking. "How is this possible?" One of her surviving officers looked at her with something like accusation in his eyes. "They tried to tell us," he said. "That first ambassador, he warned us what they were. We just didn't listen." A human missile struck the flagship's engine section. The lights flickered and died. In the emergency lighting, saw her own death approaching on the display. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 42,000 ships had been destroyed. Human casualties totaled 217 ships, with most crews successfully evacuated. The surviving vessels fled, their commanders broadcasting desperate pleas for help. But no help was coming. The other species of the Galactic Assembly had watched the battle footage and decided that getting involved would be suicide. The Empress stared at the reports in numb horror. 60,000 ships, she whispered. 60,000 of our finest warriors, gone in 3 hours. "We underestimated them," her advisor said. His voice trembled. "We thought they were weak because they chose peace, but they were never weak. They were just waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For us to give them a reason." Closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw the faces of the humans who had died at Mercy Point 7. She remembered how the galaxy had laughed at their ambassador's warnings. She remembered how she herself had celebrated the massacre as a great victory. "What do we do now?" she asked. Her advisor had no answer. But the humans did. 3 days after the Battle of Nu, human ships appeared in orbit around not attacking, just waiting. A single transmission came through on all frequencies. "This is Admiral of the United Human Command. Empress, I am giving you one chance to surrender unconditionally. You will disband your military. You will turn over commander and all officers responsible for the Mercy Point 7 massacre. You will pay reparations to the families of those you killed." There was a pause. "You have 24 hours to respond. If you refuse or if you try to flee, we will assume you intend to continue hostilities. And I promise you, Empress, you do not want to see what happens next." The transmission ended. In her palace, looked at her generals. None of them would meet her eyes. They had all seen the battle footage. They knew that the human fleet hanging above their world could destroy them at any moment. "We have no choice," one general finally said. "We must surrender." Wanted to argue, she wanted to fight, but she remembered the images Ambassador Park had shown the assembly 15 years ago, the mushroom clouds, the trenches filled with bodies, the weapons that could crack continents. The humans had been holding back. Even now, destroying the mightiest fleet in the Dominion's history, they were still holding back. What would happen if they stopped? Did not want to find out. "Contact the human admiral," she said quietly. "Tell her we accept her terms." But even as she gave the order, she knew it would not be enough. The humans had been kind and generous for centuries. They had built hospitals and schools and shared their knowledge freely, and they had repaid that kindness with murder. Some debts could not be paid with surrender alone. The reckoning had only begun. The war lasted 11 days. Not because they kept fighting. They had surrendered within hours of the Battle of Nu. The war lasted 11 days because that was how long it took humanity to systematically dismantle every military installation, every weapons factory, and every warship in the entire Dominion. Human soldiers moved across worlds like ghosts. They found hidden weapons caches and destroyed them. They located secret military bases and reduced them to rubble. They tracked down every ship capable of carrying weapons and towed them into the sun. But they did not harm civilians. This was the part that terrified the galaxy most of all. The humans could have destroyed them completely. They had the weapons. They had the power. A single order from Admiral could have turned every world into a dead rock floating in space. But instead, human soldiers walked past families without even looking at them. They destroyed military targets with surgical precision and left everything else standing. "Why?" Empress asked when Admiral finally came to meet her in person. "Why spare us? After what we did, you have every right to destroy us." Stood in the ruins of what had been the military command center. Her uniform was simple and clean. Her face showed no anger, no hatred, just exhaustion. "Because we are not you," she said quietly. "We do not punish the innocent for the crimes of their leaders. We do not murder civilians because their government made us angry. We did not come here for revenge." "Then why?" demanded. "Why all of this?" "To make sure you can never do this again," gestured at the destruction around them. "Your military is gone. Your weapons are gone. Your ability to threaten human lives is gone. That is all we wanted." Stared at the human admiral. She had expected rage. She had expected cruelty. She had expected humans to be what they would have been in their place. Vengeful destroyers who would not stop until their enemy was completely annihilated. Instead, she found something far more unsettling. Control. Absolute, terrifying control. Commander continued, "Where is she?" His face twisted. "She fled during the battle, we don't know." "We found her 3 hours ago," interrupted. hiding in a cargo ship bound for neutral space. She is now in human custody. She will face trial for her crimes. What will happen to her? Justice? His voice was cold. Human justice. She will be tried fairly. She will be allowed to defend herself. And when she is found guilty, she will spend the rest of her life in a prison cell, remembering the faces of everyone she killed. Expected the human to smile at this, to show some satisfaction, but its expression never changed. "You think we enjoy this," said quietly. "You think we wanted war, you're wrong. We mourned when we learned what happened at Mercy Point 7. We wept for our dead, and then we wept for yours because we knew what was coming." She took a step closer too. "We built our entire civilization to prevent this. We created laws and institutions specifically designed to keep ourselves from becoming what we became in these past 11 days. And you destroyed all of that because you thought our kindness was weakness." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You have no idea how hard it was for us to stop. You have no idea how many voices in our government wanted to keep going, wanted to make the extinct as a lesson to the rest of the galaxy." His blood ran cold. "But we stopped," continued, "because we are still human, because we still believe in mercy even when mercy is hard. Consider yourself lucky, Empress. Consider your entire species lucky, and never ever forget what happens when you push us too far." 1 year later, Ambassador stood before the Galactic Assembly. The chamber that had once laughed at humanity was now silent as a tomb. "We take no pleasure in what happened," said. "We did not want war. We did not want to reveal what we are capable of. For centuries, we worked to build a civilization based on kindness and generosity because we knew what the alternative looked like." He paused, looking at each delegate in turn. "The thought we were weak. They were wrong. We were never weak. We were restrained. There is a difference." He gestured toward the viewport. Outside, a human medical ship was moving into position. Even now, human doctors were preparing to help rebuild what human soldiers had destroyed. "That ship carries medicine and supplies for the people. Our doctors will treat their sick and injured without asking for payment, without holding grudges, without remembering what their government did to us, because that is who we choose to be." His voice hardened. "But let me be absolutely clear. Humanity will always prefer peace. We will always choose kindness first. We will trade fairly and share our knowledge and heal your sick and shelter your refugees. We will be exactly what we have always been, a species that believes the universe can be better than it is." He took a breath. "However, if any species harms our people, if anyone threatens our children, if anyone mistakes our generosity for weakness and decides to test our limits, they will discover what our ancestors spent centuries trying to forget. They will learn why humanity worked so hard to build cages around its own heart." The chamber was completely silent. "We have a saying on Earth," continued. "Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. They did not learn. They paid the price. We hope the rest of the galaxy is wiser." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Humanity gives one warning. We gave it to you 15 years ago, when Ambassador Park stood in this very chamber and showed you our history. Most of you laughed." He looked back at the assembled delegates. "No one is laughing now." As walked out, the eldest delegate spoke. His voice was barely a whisper, but in the silent chamber, everyone heard him. "The humans warned us, and we did not listen. May the stars forgive us for our arrogance." Above them, through the crystal ceiling, human ships moved peacefully among the stars. Medical vessels and trading ships and exploration craft just like before, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The galaxy had learned why humanity chose peace. And they would never forget.